What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And this one will break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening in the market thus far and what you should be watching for as time progresses. And also what's happening with some big news involving China that did play somewhat of a role in why the market sold off the way it did. Before I break anything down this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. Firstly, I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire community as a whole. So why did the market sell off the way it did? There are many different facets that played a big role. Number one, we have market makers who saw that people were turning more and more greedy. They continued to become greedy as we saw the fear and greed index hit greed. They saw people continuing to buy into the markets, buy, and then that's their opportunity to just not squeeze, but basically screw over a lot of people who are going long as well. So the market makers shifted their game and they're still just trying to cause pain. I also want to add that the put and call ratios came down quite a bit, right? This is actually the same level we saw them at before the market ended up basically topping in July. So with all these people buying calls, betting the market was going to squeeze more and more and more, the market makers saw this and they decided to surprise people and they gave us a massive rug pull. Then on top of that, I just want to call out that there were other pieces of news in anticipation of news that could play another big role. And then the algorithms played a big role in this as well, as we saw a pivot that formed from this level. So the robots slash algorithms, the market makers, and the current sentiment of investors played a big role in this happening. Not to mention some anticipation of news, which I will talk about in just a few minutes. But there's also this big piece of news. The president of China slash dictator, whatever you want to call him, he warned Biden during the summit that Beijing will reunify Taiwan with China. So some very, very big news that came out. This is not great news whatsoever for many companies associated with China, such as Tesla, the NEOs out there. This is some very, very bad news, and this is why we saw this negatively affect the markets. So this, alongside the other factors, played a big role in this. Don't forget about technicals; those also played a role. The market has been pumping nonstop for about 7 straight weeks. This is almost 8 weeks of nonstop pumping. So seeing a move like this is not entirely surprising, but we didn't really get a good warning of this, a sell-off that's this aggressive. For the last few days, we weren't really expecting it to happen like this. But when it happens, the best thing we could really do is just be prepared for it. Now watch our next levels. So what's going on with tomorrow? As a reminder, 1 hour before the market opens, we have the GDP numbers coming out. We have initial jobless claims, and then we have all these other pieces of data. And on top of that, I just want to mention that at 11:30 a.m., we have the 4-week and the 8-week bill auctions coming out, not to mention the 15 and 30-year mortgage rates. So we'll be watching for some volatility at 11:30 a.m. and also around 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Then on Friday, we have PCE data coming out an hour before open, some more data from Michigan. So we'll be watching to see how that affects the markets. But for now, we'll be watching to see what happens tomorrow with the GDP numbers. I also want to add to everyone that right now, the market is looking very weak amidst this big rejection. So we're going to be watching some key levels. On SPY, the daily candlestick looks very bearish. It looks like there's going to be more selling coming, and we're about to get a bearish crossover on the PPO. Massive rejection. I think we're just getting started. The 4-hour time frame is also turning a bit more bearish. You guys can see how it's turning. And on the weekly time frame on SPY, I just want to call out that we have a bearish looking weekly candle, but we need to see SPY maintain these levels by Friday close in order for us to turn even more bearish for next week. But I'm not going to worry too much about that yet. Let's just focus on these levels. So it's very simple. SPY is testing 467 as support, this 467 zone. If we lose 467, I would turn a lot more bearish, and I see 465 coming, then eventually these lower levels like 462. If we're bullish, you want to see it close above 472, but that's going to be very difficult. What do I think is going to happen? I think that with the GDP numbers, the market's going to rebound. I think it's going to make an attempt to get back up just a few points up, but I think the move is going to fail. I think SPY will pop a little bit, then eventually just start to sell off again as the day goes on tomorrow and make its way all the way down back to about 467, if not below that. So I still anticipate more downside. I don't think we're done yet, but I see a pop and then a drop coming. I think it's very, very probable. On the QQQ, I see the same thing happening. I think the GDP numbers will pop it just a little bit. We could retest this 404 to 405 range, then eventually just reject from another flag right here and then just come back down. We lost support at 404. We actually closed below that, so that's a bearish signal. And I think 402 is imminent. We also have that gap down below. Excuse me, sorry guys. So look for a little pop, then a rejection, and I think we're going to be seeing this thing sink towards 402 and eventually 399 over the next few days. This is a very bearish looking candle, so it does favor the bears a bit more. On Tesla, unfortunately, guys, the Chinese news is bad news for Tesla. Tesla took a big hit because of it. Tesla's currently at 248. We're just barely holding 247. I could see Tesla make its way back up into the very low 250s, attempts to get back up and then eventually fail. And I think that would have more downside coming now. If we lose 247, it's going to come down towards this 244 to 245 range, which is where we have this blue trend line. And if we lose this, expect a bigger sell-off towards the very low 240 area to continue selling even more. So if you look at the daily time frame, like just like this, right? This is where a lot of these trend lines had actually come from. You guys can see them just like this, just in case you guys are like curious. So this is where the blue trend line comes from. This is where our orange trend line comes from, the uptrend, and then we have the yellow trend line as our support historically. We've broken below that support after the bad news that came out, not to mention the algorithms and such that took over, and the overall market sell-off that played a big role in hurting Tesla. So this looks bearish now. Getting a big break, this is bearish. Look for a little pop back into the 250s, another rejection, and we could see Tesla slowly make its way back down to the mid 240s, even below that for the time being. So very bad news, guys. It's sad that Tesla broke below this. It is what it is, but we just have to watch this for now. I think there's still more room to come down. Nvidia attempted to rebound, but it's forming now like a head and shoulders like structure. We're going to be looking for a little rebound on Nvidia. We could be actually retesting this liquidity right here. I could see 485 or so being retested and a rejection. I think Nvidia is going to make its way down towards this support trend line. This blue trend line down here, you guys can see this blue line. I think we're going to be testing that. I think Nvidia is going to come back down towards 475 to test that. And that might fail. If it fails, there's even more downside coming towards 474.5 and 471. So I see this head and shoulders like structure. I see this thing potentially rejecting. Look for a little pop and a rejection. And I see this potentially selling off even more. I think that this is going to lead to more volatility. So with this sell-off potentially coming for Nvidia, we're going to be watching to see if this blue trend line breaks. We're going to be watching to see if this fails. My guts tells me it's going to pop and drop, and I think that there is going to be more selling. Nvidia is looking kind of weak right now, so just be very careful. On Aapl, unfortunately, Aapl was attempting to rebound, but it started to turn weak again at near close, and we're just barely holding this support. This inverse head and shoulders may have been a fake out for retail. A big fake out happened today where we kind of like popped, pushed very nicely before getting this big rejection. Aapl ended up losing support at 196. We're not extremely far from where we were a few days ago, but we're still looking kind of weak. I could see Aapl attempting to rebound, get very close to 196, then just rejecting. I think it's eventually going to come back down towards this wick at 194.4. I think that the market structure could be changed, but we have to see this thing establish a lower high and come back down. I still anticipate that, guys, and I see some more downside coming. I think the whole market's going to be impacted by this news. SoFi took a big hit as well, unfortunately. Going to be watching this thing test 8.96 very, very soon. For the IWM, the Russell 2000, look for a little rebound. I think it could backtest 197, then come back down towards 193. I think it has a gap to fill. I think it's going to fill the gap, and there's more downside coming by Friday. By Friday, I think Microsoft's going to sell off more. We saw this thing attempt to rebound. Now it's hitting the lower support right over here. If it loses 370, watch it start snaking back down towards this wick at 367. So I see some selling coming from Microsoft. I anticipate that. AMD attempted to break 142, and it just barely saw this this wick right here, which is our nice liquidity grab. This was the pivot that basically developed right over here. So it was like on an uptrend. Now it's switched. I think it's going to downtrend. I think it's going to try to bounce off the 4-hour 50 EMA, retest 136, and then make its way back down later on towards 131. I anticipate some downside on AMD now. The VIX is finally starting to show some life. This thing is up 10% and closed above its 4-hour 50 EMA. It also broke above the 4-hour 20 EMA, which is a very, very good sign. I could see the VIX slowly climb towards 15 now. It looks a little bit more bullish as we finally got a bounce. SQQQ is looking bullish. That's once again quite interesting. Same thing with the dollar index, looking kind of bullish. I could see this thing breaking 102.77, dragging the market down. For Coinbase, this thing ended up reaching our target. Here's the thing I was saying. 168 is coming on Coinbase. Instead of it came just under like 170. And then we got this big rejection. I think it has more room for downside. I think 156 is coming. Eventually 150. I anticipate some downside for that. Alibaba took a slight hit after this negative news came out. Fortunately for it, there's more downside coming. I think 70 is going to be retested. Google's starting to turn. Watch it come down to 137 and 136. I see some more downside. I think Google's going to slow down. Could rebound towards 141, then reject and come down to 137. For Amazon, This bad news is kind of like negatively affecting it. We have a bearish divergence, and I think it's going to be retesting 150 very, very soon, if not breaking below it. Could back test 153.17 or 153 flat, then reject and come down towards 150. On Meta, we're going to be watching for another rejection on the 4-hour time frame. I think that 344 is coming. It could backtest 350, then make its way down towards 344. If 344 fails us, then we have even lower levels to come. But anyways, guys, that's what I have for this video. Thank you all so much for listening. Please remain calm, cool, and collected. I just want to note that this is what I'm seeing on the charts now. Sometimes in one day, everything could shift after you get some negative pieces of news, after you see market makers change their plans, and after all these changes just happen. So once again, guys, it is what it is. We just have to accept the reality of the situation. The reality is the market might pop a little bit, then make its way even lower going into tomorrow for more potential downside. When the market tries to pop, we could just see more liquidity grabs. So look for wicks in the charts above, right? For example, if you guys want to see an example of one, you guys could see AMD. So this is like the epitome of what like a wick could look like. Look at AMD, guys. Look at this big wick that formed yesterday. Big wick right here before it came down. See that? So that's like an example of how they grab liquidity. See if we form something like that tomorrow on smaller time frames. If you're looking at SPY and etc., that's when they basically signal this pivot, and I think that we're going to see something similar tomorrow. So watch for that on the smaller time frames, like the 5 minutes and etc. I hope this video was very helpful for everyone out there. I want to make this one nice, short, sweet, and simple. I just want to be honest with everyone. So have a great day, guys. I'll see you guys tomorrow morning on the next one, and peace out.